Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's exciting webinar. My name is Norma Gomez, and I'm a regional manager within the LA County Economic Development Corporation. My focus is in the Together for LA program, which I will be speaking about shortly. But before I do that, I definitely wanted to highlight some of the things of LAEDC, which is short for LA Economic Development Corporation. About us, we were founded in 1981, and with the vision of reimagining a regional economy that is growing, equitable, sustainable, and resilient, and that provides a healthy and high standard of living for all. Our mission as staff and members is to represent the diversity of LA County and act as trusted conveners, thought partners, valued service providers, regional stewards, and catalysts for transformational change. You can find all the resources within LAEDC at the laedc.org/coronavirus website. In there, you'll see listed the various business resources we have within our organization. You can filter it by industry, business type, and by resource type. The Together for LA program, which I referenced a little earlier, is a strategic partnership that strengthens and supports women and diverse-owned small businesses in the Los Angeles County that strive to recover from some of the challenges that they incurred during the COVID-19 pandemic. We offer no-cost technical assistance and connections to small business resources that are made available through the generous fund of Wells Fargo Open for Business Fund. We have various strategic partners as part of this program, which are also listed on the slide. Some of the technical assistance that we do on a one-on-one complimentary consultation revolve around various areas to include workforce training and development, utility programs, access to capital, and you can see the list on this, and you can on the slide as well as on our website. In essence, LAEDC is your connection to resources that go anywhere from permit assistance, financing, energy efficiencies, workforce, economic data, and we are correct. The dotted line that you see on the slide will show you who we are connected in various areas. And again, to further continue this and not spend too much time on this, you can find all of this on our website as well. Now let's get started for today's exciting webinar. I also want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, and at the end of the session, you will be having access to this via our website. There will also be a Q&A session at the end where you can put your questions in the Q&A and chat functions of your computer. So today's exciting speaker is Connie Sparks. She is the founder of WADECO Business Center, LLC, and Wheelbarrow Products. Her consulting and financing career spans over 23 years, helping business owners and managers build transformative and financing strategies to meet the demands of their market. She has valuable key partnerships with the U.S. Small Business Administration, Milken Institute, the City of LA, and others. We are excited to introduce her, and without further ado, let's welcome Connie Sparks.
Thank you, Norma, for that wonderful introduction and this great opportunity to present to your membership. So as Norma mentioned, I am a certification and contract specialist with WADECO Business Center. And so today I want to give you just a little bit insight on the certification process and just help you navigate through that whole system, especially for those of you that are new to this industry or to this system. And then for those of you that are certified but are not aware of some of the other opportunities that may be out there and available to you. So as Norma mentioned, there will be an opportunity for you to ask additional questions towards the end, and I look forward to them. Next slide. Next slide. So some of the things that I'm going to cover and highlight will be industry highlights. I will also go into certification requirements, certification statuses, certification benefits, and then securing procurement opportunities. Next slide. So to begin, I'll start with some industry highlights. giving you an overview of the federal government award report, and then also SLED contracting. Next slide. So here is just a snapshot, giving you an overview of the government report card. So many don't know that each government agency or entity, they have a report card, right? And so they have certain goals that they have to meet. And so with that, I always like to present this so that the market business owners are aware of, what these agencies are required to, or how they're required to perform, and how many awards they are required to issue to a certain demographic or a certain concern. And so here, just to give you a quick run through, for prime contracts, right, for your SBE small business enterprise in 2022, there was a goal of, in 2020, there was a goal of 23%, and they actually exceeded that by 26%. And then also for 2020, from 2020 to 2022, for the DBE, their goal was 5, and they actually met that goal, exceeded that goal by 10.9. And the same thing with woman-owned small business, which is a federal program, which I think that number should be a little bit higher in terms of their goal. Nevertheless, they did meet that goal. And then the same for disabled vet, they actually exceeded that by 1.39%. And then with the subcontracts, the goals are pretty similar, but it seems that they tend to perform higher or issue more of subcontracting goals in conjunction with the prime contract goals. And I'll talk more about the difference between a prime contractor and then a subcontractor. Next slide. So did you know that according to the annual business survey, approximately 18.3%, which is 1 million small businesses, were minority owned, that actually captured about 19.9% of contracts within the government procurement space, and they were all owned by women. So that, I was really happy to learn about that in 2020, and I can't wait to see the 2021 report. And I'm hoping that that number has increased, because in previous years we were at between 8 and 10%. So to see now that we're at 19.9%, that's a great achievement from where we were before. However, if you're looking collectively, minorities only make up about 5% of the $508.4 billion in federal contracts award. So that's why you have organizations like the LADC and WADECO that really work really hard to try and provide these types of information and resources to the minority community, so that you too can capture some of these opportunities and grow your business to, or scale your business to another level and tap into some of these newer markets. Next slide. So when we refer to SLED, if you've ever heard the term SLED, if you heard someone say SLED contracts, they're referring to state, local, and education governments. That is a term that is used within the procurement industry, and it's really important that you just kind of learn or get to know what a lot of these acronyms and terms are. So when you're talking to these agencies, these procurement officers, and they use these terms, you want to really know what they're referring to, what they're talking about, so that you can intelligently have that same conversation and be confident and comfortable with that. But with the SLED, there are over 100,000 unique government entities that purchase goods and services. So annually, they are purchasing approximately $1.5 trillion in goods and services. So that's also something to keep in mind. And right now I was doing some research a few weeks ago. And one of the articles that I had came across, I'm learning that now a lot of these individual states outside, or individual agencies outside of the states themselves are actually, they actually have goals themselves. And once you subscribe to to these agencies or these supplier platforms, you will then get notices about their goals, and then their report card. And why I'm mentioning that, it's good to know, because if you have an interest in doing business with, let's say, the state of Arizona, and they've increased their goal for minority contracts to 9%. It used to be 5%, and now they have increased it to 9%. And so it's good that you understand what their goals are, so that for that year, you can always reach out to that entity or to a state and find out, okay, where are you with your goals, right? And you can also ask, how many minority women have you awarded contracts to, right? Or how many, you know, women have you awarded contracts to? And they will provide you with that information. But then it is also a good opportunity for you to start establishing that relationship with that entity as well. Next slide. So just to dive a little more deeper into the SLED, so you have your state governments, which are generally, they have larger budgets, right? And so they can issue larger contract opportunities. Next. Municipalities, it also is a government entity which oversees the operation and functions of the cities, the townships, the towns, the villages. And so, and a lot of people miss the municipalities, right? So they tend to go straight to the states, straight to the cities, or to the counties, but tend to forget about municipalities and, you know, special districts, and also the education, the educational institutions. So these two also, all of these SLED entities do provide great contractual opportunities. Now, as it relates to your colleges and the municipalities or special districts, they have a different supplier system. So you would have to register with them directly. So if you register with the state, if a municipality or if a college within that state were to issue a RFP, it wouldn't be publicized on the state website. So you would have to register with them independently. All right, then you have your public schools and your universities, which I'm absolutely starting to love now, because a lot of these schools, they're coming back into session and they're, you know, revamping their inventory, their services. I'm seeing a lot of opportunities with colleges, especially for products like tissue, water, what's another one? Janitorial services, paper. So I'm starting to see a lot more opportunities through the educational systems or these universities than I have in previous years. Then you have your independent school districts. If you're interested in working with the school system, I really do recommend that you get certified and add yourself to their vendors list. So how that would work, once you are approved, they will send out an RFI, request for information, or an RFQ, request for quote. And then once you will provide them with a quote of your services, and if your pricing is reasonable or within their budget, then they will add you to their vendors list. And once you're added to their vendors list, the beauty about that is you don't have to go through this formal RFP process, because they will then reach out to you directly. So say, for example, you have a school, which recently happened to me. My company was approved as a vendor for a school in Oklahoma. And one of the school districts needed services. And so that school was able to reach out to me directly because the award was under $250,000. And so those are the ones that I really do like, because you don't have to go through that whole bidding, formal bidding process. you can just go straight to or they can come straight directly to you, and then you just provide your invoice to them once they have provided you with the PO. Next slide. All right, so now let's jump into the certification requirements. So I'll talk about the general certification criteria and certification readiness. Next slide. So some of the basic certification criteria, you must be in business. Now, there is no number, right? So it's not like you have to have been in business, a year, 2 years, or 3 years. You literally could file your DBA today, open your business checking account, have all of your ducks in the row, and then apply for a certification. So a certification is not based on the years of establishment. It's just based on you being a business concern, right? So you have to have a DBA or a LLC, some form of structured entity. You have had to have started that business, live in a respective area of the certification. So if you live in Arizona, then you would be required to be certified in Arizona as your primary home state. But if you want to work, if you want to, have contracts or do work in, let's say, Dallas, Texas, your California would be your primary home state, but then you would be, you can also be certified in Dallas, Texas. It just would not be recognized as your home state. It would be an interstate certification, right? But for your home state, you have to live in that respective area. You cannot own more than $750,000 in assets. You have to be in good standing with the federal, state, and county government. And a lot of these agencies may require you to have or to provide them with a letter of good standing from the Secretary of State. So just keep that in mind. If you are an LLC, you may have to provide that. You must have filed your last 5 years of tax returns. And this is something that is most recent. In previous years, up until last year, it was 3 years, but this year, 2022, they are requiring 5 years of personal and business tax returns, barring that you've been in business that long. If you have only been in business 2 years, then you will provide 2 years of your federal tax returns and 5 years of your personal tax returns. You must be a legal resident of your state. You must have the capacity to service a contract. And this is huge. And the reason why I say this is huge because this is where smaller companies or micro businesses tend to get caught up in a trap. If you apply for a contract, you must be able to fulfill that contract, meaning that you have to have the right team, right? So when they talk about capacity, you have to have the team, you have to have the goods, and you have to have the financial capacity to service that contract. I've known a couple of companies that bidded on a contract, a very large contract, and they did not have the team, but their hopes or their goal was to try and hire a team, bring in a team to help them service that contract. And it just didn't work out. They lost that contract. And unfortunately, when that happens, then that kind of follows you. So when you have to provide that reference of other contracts that you've serviced, you would have to list that contract. And when they reach out to that service agency, and they then inform the agency that you're trying to contract with that you were not able to fulfill it, you did not honor that contract, that can be a bad scar on your reputation for your business. And so you really want to try to avoid that. So only bid on contracts that you absolutely know that you can service. You must also have a verifiable place of business. If you have a PO box, that's not going to work. With today's system, they can actually identify a actual physical address versus a PO box or a virtual office, right? And then you must have a business bank account. Next slide. So when we refer to your certification readiness, So I mentioned establish your legal business. You want to apply for your EIN. If you don't have one, even if you are a sole proprietor, you should absolutely have an EIN, because they are going to ask for your EIN verification letter from the IRS. So that's something you want to make sure that you have readily. And then with regards to SAM, they're no longer using DUNS as their verification or business verification system. Their SAM is now using a unique ID, or a UEI is what they're calling it now. And so this is something that you would have to apply or register for when you start up your SAM account. Now, if you already have a SAM account, you may have already received a notice that you need to validate your business. And I just want to, point out this right now, since we're here, that unfortunately, since the rollout of this new system where they have transitioned from DUNS over to this unique ID platform, there has been a lot of issues, and they're really backed up. So it's causing a lot of registration issues for people that are trying to either renew their SAM, or trying to update their SAM, or trying to register for a new account with SAM. So just keep that in mind. And the biggest issue is the address verification. That's where they're really having the issue. I have no idea why they rolled it out without fully testing this system, to mainstream. But right now they're really having a hard time trying to get people registered and validated through this system. And then you also have to, when you apply for your SAM, you will also, at the same time, your registration will go to DLA, which is the agency that provides you with or assigns you a cage number. And so if that cage, you won't be issued a cage number if SAM cannot validate your your address. So that's where the big conflict is coming in between the cage code and the validation of your address. And then, lastly, you want to make sure that you start gathering up all of your documents. And that's by if you go to the websites, and I'll provide the links to you a little later, but when you go to the websites, you can download a checklist, and then you can start the process. But I'm going to also give you an overview of the documents that will be required. Next slide. Well, since I've already dived into the SAM system, then we can skip this slide. Next. All right, so now let's talk about the certification statuses. And these are important. And there are a number of, these are just more of your common statuses, certification statuses, but you have cities and counties that have their own certifications that you may want to look into. So at the federal level, you have the DBE and you have the WOSB. And then at your state level, you have your SBE and your MBE. Oh, and the VOSB is a federal as well. And then more at your local level, you have the MBE and the WBE. And now I will just walk you through, just give you a quick overview of each of these statuses. Next slide. So for your SBE, again, which is a local certification. This is for the Los Angeles County area, it would be an SBE, but for the state, it would be SB. So you have to be independently owned and operated, not dominant in your field of operation. You must be registered in the state of California. And then the owners must be domiciled in their state, and including affiliates must be either a business with 100 or fewer employees, have an average annual gross receipt of 15 million or less within the last 3 years for manufacturers with 100 employers or fewer. You must be, if you're a micro business, then you will automatically be designated as a micro business if your gross receipts are less than $5 million. So again, this is just for the local level certification through the County of Los Angeles. Next slide. Your DBE, Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise. This is specifically for veterans, for U.S. military, naval, and air service. So you must be connected, you must have a service-connected disability of 10%. Your office must be located in the U.S., must be at least 51% owner of a company. And then you also must run the daily operations. And I want to give you a quick example about with regards to this certification, because I ran into one of my clients who were their partners. So it was three women that were have a partnership, and one of them is a veteran. However, she was a minority, and so they really wanted this certification, but because she was a minority, they wouldn't qualify for it. So what they attempted to do was to make her the primary owner of the company, giving her 51%, and then changing the bylaws and all of the operating agreements and everything over, so it's demonstrating that she has full control and ownership of the company. Now, you absolutely can do that, but I would just say do it with caution. Another thing to note is with the DBE, for example, you have to demonstrate that, let's say, for example, if you live in Los Angeles, but your business may be in Orange County, they may look at that as a disruptor, meaning that they're going to look at the time it takes for you to get from your home to your office. And they may determine that, okay, well, that's just too far for you to drive back and forth, right, to your office. Or let's say in my client's case, the veteran, she lived in Las Vegas. And because she lived in Las Vegas and she could not demonstrate that she would, be here for 3 or 4 days at a time within a week and then travel back home to Las Vegas. But she needed to be here to demonstrate that she's managing the day-to-day operations. So because of where she lived, even though they had converted everything over to her as 51% owner, she was not eligible. They were not able to get the DBE status because of where she lived. So just keep that in mind. If you have a partnership and one of the partners is a veteran, and if that veteran live afar, then that can pose a problem. Next slide. DBE, your disadvantaged business enterprise. So you must be at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more socially and or economically disadvantaged individuals. So in previous years, it was described as a DBE was more like a minority, right? A Hispanic, African-American, anything other than white. Well, they have recently changed that requirement. So now it's more of, you have to be able to demonstrate that you are socially and or economically disadvantaged, and that could be by revenue, right? So let's say, for example, if you live in a rural area and you have access to less resources than your counterparts, then that could qualify you as a DBE of being socially and or economically disadvantaged. So I'm really happy that they changed that, because it does open up the opportunities for more small businesses to get certified as a DBE. And then you must have a personal net worth less than 1.3 million. And that does not include your personal residence. So when you're completing your personal net worth statement, you want to exclude your primary residence. Next slide. Minority woman business enterprise or minority business enterprise. They have both the same requirements. So you have to prove, you have to provide evidence of gender for each owner. If you're filing for a MWBE, you have to demonstrate that you are a female owner. And then you must be 51% owner of the company. And now you have to show a copy of your current passport, birth certificate, and or driver's license. And I want to touch on the birth certificate because this is where a lot of people are getting messed up. On the birth certificate, it must state your ethnicity. If it does not, then you have to get a copy of one of your parents. And on their birth certificate, it has to state the ethnicity of their for their background. If they are Asian or African American, whatever, it has to state their ethnicity if it doesn't show up on yours. And a lot of people, they get frustrated with that because they say, well, they see a copy of my driver's license, see that I'm Black, I'm African American. Well, yeah, but the rules say that it still has to demonstrate it on your birth certificate. So unfortunately, that's just something, we're working through to try and get that waived. But as of right now, it is a requirement. You also must show evidence of being a U.S. citizen or permanent legal resident in the state. You will also need to provide financial statements for your business. And so typically, in addition to the federal tax returns, they're going to ask for your interim financial statement. So an interim balance sheet and an interim profit and loss statement. So from January to the present moment in which you are applying for that certification. They will also ask for a proof of capital or equity investment. Now, in most cases, people don't have, if you've been in business 10 years, is more than likely you don't remember how much money you may have initially invested or what you used your initial capital for. So what I always recommend to people is to just write a letter of statement, just clearly stating that, you started your business 10 years ago and you do not have, you don't recall how much how much money you actually invested, but you believe it was approximately, let's say, $10,000. And then you will list what the $10,000 was for, right? For a computer, for supplies, for inventory, software, whatever that may be, you would just jot down a list. And this is real important because I've seen people who have actually been denied for not being able to prove their, how much money they've actually invested into a business. And so just keep that in mind. If you don't remember, if you don't have the bank account, this is another big one. If you do not have, let's say you opened your business account 10 years ago, but you don't have the same bank account when you first opened your business. So you want to make sure that when you're writing that letter of statement that you also include in there that you do not have access to the same bank account in which you opened when you started your business, because they will ask for either bank statements or proof of that investment, meaning that they will ask for the bank statements from that time that shows where you've made certain transactions to purchase those, your inventory, your computers, and which I think is really nonsense, but it is what it is right now. So I wanted to give you that little tidbit so that when you come to that question, how to properly address it. Next slide, please. Small Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business, your SDVOSB. This is a federal program, and this is specifically for disabled veterans. So similar to the DBE, the veteran must have a service-connected disability determined by the VA or Department of Defense. One or more must be unconditionally owned. The business must be unconditionally owned by a 51% owner. That must be a service-disabled veteran. And he or she must manage and control the day-to-day operations and make all of the decisions for the company. So when you have, the example that I gave you in the previous slide about the DBE, same here. When you are preparing your operating agreement, if you are if you're converting or you're giving that service disabled veteran the 51% so that you can apply for this particular certification, I would recommend that you really go through it with a fine comb and make sure that on all areas that relate to making decisions or voting, that all of that is excluded. Because when they review and the department that handles the SDVOSB certification, they are very particular. And when they go through your bylaws, and if there's anything in there that indicates that that disabled veteran does not have full control over the company, they will deny you. I had another client that went through that situation before they came to us, and we managed to help them and we got them certified. But that was one of their biggest frustrations, was that it was the operating agreement, and they try to give you some instructions, although they're not clear instructions. So you really have to kind of read between the lines, and that's where people get tripped up. You must live within a reasonable commute to the firm headquarters and or job site location, kind of what I was referring to with regards to the DBE. You also qualify for set-aside programs, and you must provide a copy of the DD 214 and evidence for Department of Veterans Affairs Award service for a connected disability, anywhere from 0 to 100%, but you have to provide the DD 214 and also provide proof of your service connected disability. Next slide. Your LSBE, this is a city program. And so for this one, you have to earn less than $3 million in gross revenue. And this is typically over three years. So it's not like 3 million a year. It's I'm sorry, I said city, it's county. You have to have earned less than $3 million over a 3-year period. So if you've earned 500,000 year 1, $1 million year 2, and then let's say another 500 for year 3, then that qualifies you. But if you did $1 million each year, you're just right there on the border, right? And that's for gross revenue. You of course have to be a small business. You must live in the county of Los Angeles, and you also qualify for city contracts as well under $100,000. So for this one, and I'm really kind of happy to see the two, where for this one you can qualify, or you can bid on, you can use this certification for both county and city. Next slide. For your small disadvantaged business, which is your 8A program, this is a federal program. It's not so much as a certification, but more of a procurement program. And it's really tied into the GSA, General Service Administration. But you must be a small business, not already have participated in the 8A program. And also note that this program, you can participate in it for 2 terms, which will come out to, I believe, is up to, I think they increase it to 9 years. So it's like 4 years, 5, no, I think it's 7 years, because it's 4 years and then 3 years that you can participate in this program. You must be at least 51% owner and control the business, and you must be a U.S. citizen that is economically and or socially disadvantaged. And that means you have to provide a letter. So you literally have to write a letter and explain how you are economically and or socially disadvantaged. One of the clients that and this was the very first one that I did many years ago for an Asian woman. And I wrote a letter on her behalf because she was actually both. She came over to the country. She didn't speak English well. Her parents were, English, they didn't do well in speaking English, and they had a really challenging time. She was teased a lot in school for the way she looked, which really impacted her growing up. And so I was able to create a story around her situation, and that's how she was able to get approved. So when they ask for your story, you really want to kind of dig deep and think about all of the things that you had to endure, you were subjected to, that made you economically and or socially disadvantaged. A good story goes a long ways. And you also must have a personal net worth of $250,000 or less. And as you can see, all of these certifications, they have different financial requirements. So just make sure if you are applying for all of them, that you are meeting the, I would say look at the SBE requirements. I'm sorry, not the SBE, but the 8A requirements. And try to stay within that guideline, so that you know that you will automatically qualify for all of the certifications. But you must have the personal net worth of 250 or less, have an adjusted gross income for the last 3 years of $250,000 or less, have $4 million or less in assets, be or own and manage the day-to-day operations of the company. And you also must demonstrate good character and show potential for success for this in order to participate in this. But what I really do like about the 8A program, especially now, and I've been working with SBA on this for a long time, is that now they have it where they are actually assigning you to representatives to help you through that whole process. And you typically, the ideal person to qualify for the 8A would be someone who's been in business at least 2 years and have some type, and have, you're generating revenue, and you are looking to really scale your business, and you can fulfill large scale federal contracts. Next slide, please. For the airport concession, ACDBE, you must be 51% owner, and you must be socially and or economically disadvantaged, have less than 1.3 million personal net worth and assets, excluding your primary residence, and have less than $56.4 million in gross revenue. And then you must know that this is for the airport. So if you are interested in having a concession stand in the airport, then this is the greatest, I would say, one of the best kept secrets in terms of the procurement space, right? Because not a lot of people know about the opportunities that they can have at the airport by being ACDBE certified. So now what the LA County is doing is actually, when you apply for a DBE, they're automatically qualifying you for an ACDBE, which I think is really good because it gives you an opportunity, if it arises, to actually bid on contracts to service the airport. So I think that was really good. Next slide, please. All right, so quickly, I want to jump into some of the benefits and the pros and cons of a certification. Next slide. So the pros: it adds credibility to your business. It increases your cash flow. It opens you up to new market, and it gives you brand exposure. It also allows you to scale your business and expand, and opens you up to new opportunities. The cons are you must have financial capacity, resources, and resources to fulfill the contract. And as I mentioned earlier, and I won't go into another spiel about this, but you really want to make sure that before you bid on a contract, that you have that financial capacity, because if you do not have the finances to support a contract, that can just really it won't go over well with the agency. All right, next slide, please. And some other benefits and incentives, right? So being certified as a DBE, MBE, WBE, or an SBE, you have a 5 to 10% bid preference on set-aside solicitations. And so what that means is, if you bid on a contract, and let's say there are there's 5 bidders, and you and another person may be the only 2 that are MBEs, and so this particular set aside may be for WBEs. I'm sorry, yes, the MBEs, but it may be set aside for WBE, which is a woman-owned business enterprise. And maybe you came in about 4% over, right, the lowest bid. but everything else you look great on, with the exception of that 4% overage. Well, then what the agency would do, they will add 5 to 10%, depending on what the average is for that solicitation. If it's 5%, then they will give you a 5% discount, which will then bring you under the person that actually came in first place. And so that is the other benefit of bidding on set aside solicitations. I absolutely love them because that means that only MBEs or only WBEs can bid and will qualify for that particular contract. So if there are 4 people, but you're the only one that is a WBE or MBE, then you have a better chance of getting that contract because you meet all of the requirements. You must be eligible for the state's Small Business Participation Program. It also qualifies you, or you will be, because you're certified, excuse me, Jesus, I'm sorry, under, oh wow, sorry. Under the Prompt Act, the state must pay you the higher interest penalty. So let's say, for example, if the state, for whatever reason, or the agency, they're supposed to pay you net 45, and now it is 60 days over, right? Then they have to pay you the highest interest on that payment. They do have, and you can actually argue and fight for that because it is by right under the Prompt Payment Act. They have to pay you whatever interest is due to you without any friction. The state agency must obtain price quotes from at least 2 certified small businesses. So what that means is that there has to be at least 2 certified entities bidding on one solicitation in order for you to qualify for it. Next slide, please. All right, procurement opportunities, and we're wrapping up here. So I mentioned the set aside. So this is where, again, for those solicitations that help you to participate on a very specific targeted RFP, which is one of the best that I would absolutely recommend. Any RFP you can bid on, but the set aside is specifically for that concern. SBE, WBE, MBE, DBE, and DBBE. So those are the top 5 that I have seen set aside for. I really haven't seen any for LSBEs or SDVOSBs or WSBs. Subcontracting opportunities. One of the things that I always recommend for, especially those that are just starting, if you've never bidded or worked on a contract before, I would suggest getting the experience under your belt first, right? And so that means finding the primes that have actually bidded on a contract that you're interested in, and then reaching out to them directly and submitting a proposal to them so that you can come in as a subcontractor. Another way that you can do this is, oftentimes what I see and what I recommend my newer clients, what we do for them is that's all we do. I have clients, they don't want to be a prime. They only want to do subcontracting. And so that's what we do. We look for subcontracting opportunities for them, wherever it is that they want to operate, because that it reduces your risk. It reduces your liability and commitments by being a subcontractor. So you're not committed. You don't have that same financial commitment. You don't have that same capacity commitment as a prime. Next slide. All right, so frequently asked questions. When does the certification expire? So a certification, nowadays, they really don't expire, but they are good for a year. So let's just say every year, your agency will require an update. And either you would provide a no change affidavit, which must be notarized, or they may request your last federal tax return, so your previous year's tax returns. Why aren't more small businesses certified? Well, one of the reasons is because one, there's not a lot of information, or I shouldn't say information, because the resources are out there now, but you just, unfortunately, not a lot of small businesses are tuned into those resources. So they're not aware of these opportunities that are available through the procurement space. And then what happens if I don't bid on any contracts with my certification? Absolutely nothing. I have a couple of clients that they're certified, not because they want to do business with the government or with Sled, but more so because they want the brand and the recognition that comes with it. So they have it on their business cards, on their marketing material, on their website. And what that does is, today you have a lot of suppliers and these corporate entities that are looking to do business specifically with minority and woman-owned companies that are certified. So to their benefit, they are partnering and doing business with these companies that are looking to do business with certified minorities, without them having to, bid on government contracts. So it absolutely does nothing if you don't bid on any contract, any federal contracts or government contracts. What type of products and services do agencies look for? All. And I say all because I get at least 300, I would say about 300-400 RFPs through my desk a day. And they vary. I've seen them request dog products. I've seen them look for baby products. I mean, I've seen some marketing services. On the professional services right now, what I can tell you, what I'm seeing more of, consulting services for marketing, for event planning, for training, for strategy and development. I'm also seeing more for paper goods, for water, for school supplies. So I'm seeing a lot of those that's coming through lately. So, there's a bunch of them, but for time's sake, I can't go into all of them, but I hope that really helped. Next slide, please. And this, really concludes my presentation. Just to let you know about our certification and contract services, we do offer a flexible payment plan. We also work with all types of companies, so it doesn't matter what type of company that you are. We do search agent services, which we're the only company that does that. We also do RFP extraction, which means we take RFPs that may be, let's say, 20 to 50 pages, and we scale it down to 5 to 8 pages. We take all of the most important stuff, and that's what we condense it to, so that you don't have to read through all of the other stuff that really doesn't matter, right? And then also note that, we are located in Newhall, California, so we are local here in California, and we do offer special promotion discounts to certain groups and organizations. Next slide, please. All right, so next step, call to schedule a conference call with one of our specialists to help determine if you are qualified to be a certified small business, and then we get you certified. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Next slide. That concludes my presentation. And now I will turn it over to Norma. Norma, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
Connie, thank you so much for sharing that wealth of information to all our attendees. I'm sure this has been very beneficial, especially as businesses are looking to get certified and expand their businesses. At this time, we would like to open it to questions and answers. If you go ahead and type in on the chat function or Q&A icon on top or below your screen, we can start the session, and that will allow for a few minutes. As a reminder, though, we do want to let you know that this is being recorded. It will be available on the LAEDC website, which I will put that information up shortly, and that should be available within the next 24 hours. And let's see, the first question here is, and I'll send this to you, Connie. In your experience, do you know what is the cost of the application for the various certifications, or how that information can be found for some of our attendees?
So the the certifications themselves, you can apply, they're absolutely free. So you don't have to pay a cost. However, if you are someone that is very busy and it's not as technical with collecting documents or putting things, the application process or going through the application process, services like myself, we do charge a fee, and because what we do everything for you. We do your application, we do the submission, we are your liaison, we literally do everything for you, so you do nothing. But understand that the application, the certification itself, you can go to, I would go to lacounty.gov and then go to doing business with the County of Los Angeles, and there it lists all of the different certifications, and it has links to all of the various agencies, and you can go and you can download their checklist and you can learn more about the criteria and the process.
Thank you, Connie. Another question that we have is how to get in touch in terms of getting additional assistance in obtaining some of the contracts you've mentioned.
So you can reach me. My telephone or office number is 661-753-3379. I don't know, Erin, if you can roll it back one slide that has my contact information on there. Or you can email me at csparks@wadecobc.com. If you would like to schedule an appointment with me, you can go to cannaly.com/CD Sparks. And there you can schedule an appointment with me at your convenience.
Okay, another question that we have is, once you have your certifications, how important is it networking with government prime contractors?
Absolutely important. Absolutely important. The good thing about once you're certified and you register on these supplier platforms, then you start getting invites to a lot of these matchmaking networking events. And I say attend as many as you can. All of these organizations or agencies, they are hosting events monthly. And so I really do recommend networking with a lot of primes, as many as you can, to start establishing these relationships.
Another question is, what time frame takes place once you submit your WOSB certification application?
So for the WOSB, that can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 weeks. It's a lot like the DBE. It can take, because these are federal programs and they have to do their due diligence, which means they're running background checks. They're doing a lot of due diligence on both you and the company. So unlike your MBE or MWBE, your SBE, and some of the others, that can take anywhere from a week to 3 weeks to get certified.
Okay. Another question is, they have a virtual address. Can their LLC be certified, or must it be a physical address?
You can be certified with a virtual address. However, you will have to list both your physical and your virtual, but all of your documentation and everything will have to be listed as under your physical. So yes, you can have a virtual.
Okay, there's questions in terms of RFPs. Are there any trainings that you recommend, in kind of addressing how to complete one, or any help available based on your experience?
I don't know of any other entity that, well, no, I think SBA is their SBA J7 is the SBA platform, SBA J7, and I think it's .gov. They have a variety of workshops on RFPs, solicitations, things of that nature, but also my company, WADECO, we host workshops on RFP completions and it's actually called Understanding Your RFPs and preparing and understanding your RFPs 101. So we do have that, and actually we have one coming up in July. So hopefully if I have access to your information, or to the list today, that you will get notification of that RFP, or I'll let Norma know and she can send it out to you guys.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Connie. And I will disseminate that to everyone who attended. Another question that we have is, if I'm starting a nonprofit for teens, what type of certification should I apply for?
Unfortunately, nonprofits, the only agency that I know that certifies a nonprofit is the state of California, DGS. And then they have certain requirements for a nonprofit. And I believe, and so it depends on it. And I understand you saying it's something for young ladies, but I would go to caleprocure.ca.gov. And I would look up the requirements for a nonprofit to be certified as a SB, a small business. These other entities or agencies, unfortunately, they do not certify nonprofits. What I would recommend is that you structure a for-profit and then put your nonprofit under the for-profit, so that then whatever services you are offering through your nonprofit, it can be a subcontractor under your for-profit.
Okay, thank you. And we have time for one more question. How do you register for or get on supplier platforms once you're certified?
Well, when you actually go through that certification process, you're automatically registered on that supplier platform. Now, if you're referring to additional platforms, you can, there are a lot of paid platforms that you can register with, but I would really try to hone in on like the universities or the states, the counties, the city platforms, the municipalities websites. I would register there versus going to these paid platforms. And also fedbiz.gov. That's a free platform, and that's really good if you're interested in bidding on federal contracts. So that's fedbiz.com. .gov.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That pretty much ends our session. Again, a special thank you on behalf of LAEDC to Connie Sparks, our featured speaker. Thank you to everyone who attended. As a reminder, the webinar will be on our website. The website is on the chat. It's www.laedc.org/past webinars and events / we will also be reaching out to you on behalf of LAEDC to everyone who attended for any opportunities in terms of free consulting, and we can answer additional questions that we may have not answered today. Thank you again for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.